There are three ingredients that add to a happy life: friendships, family, and a lasting marriage. We know that loneliness is bad for one's health, but the opposite, friendship, is good for one's health. How do we navigate this maze of digitally connected yet isolated? And how do we actually connect in a seemingly disconnected society? Our next guest, Michele Howe, is a reviewer for Publishers Weekly, FaithfulReader.com, Retailers and Resources, Forward Magazine, TeenReads.com, KidsReads.com, among many other national and international publications. She's published over 2,500 reviews and articles and has been featured on numerous radio shows across the country, speaking on topics such as parenting and a diverse range of women's health issues. Her work has been published in More, First for Women, Good Housekeeping, Christianity Today, Discipleship Journal, Midwest Living, Parent Life, Fulfill, Christian Single, Single Parent and Family, Focus on the Family, Prism and Connections. She's the author of 18 books for women. In addition to her article and book writing, Michele writes a weekly women's lifestyle and single parenting column at hopeafterdivorce.org. She's also featured in the new Single and Parenting Resource video series as a parenting expert. In line with her passion for working with single parents, Michele's resources offer encouragement to women of all ages by challenging them to exercise their combination of strengths, skills, and life wisdom in pursuit of a happy, healthy, and fulfilling lifestyle. Recognizing that life is often difficult, women can learn how to recognize and face solace in significant life markers, and by doing so, acquire the strength to embrace their daily challenge. You can find more about her at Michele Howe, that's one L, .wordpress.com. Here to talk about her new book, Navigating the Friendship Maze, The Search for Authentic Friendship, is Michele Howe. Michele, welcome to Revealing the Truth.
Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure.
Well, Michele, you are one prolific author, writer, blogger, writer, and certainly radically sold out for the gospel message that the true healing all comes down to one particular place, and that's a personal relationship with the Messiah. But who was Michele growing up? What were the influences that created this product, this icon, this entity who calls herself Michele Howe?
Well, you know, I was born and bred in Michigan, and right now we're in the fall, soon going into winter, so we all, you know, huddle in here. But I became a Christian when I was 12. I had an aunt that visited over a Christmas break, and she shared the gospel with me one night. And I just remember hearing it simply and plainly and realizing I was a sinner and I needed Jesus Christ, you know, sacrifice on the cross for me. And, you know, it was just a simple child's prayer that changed my life forever. And I'm 58 now, so that's 40 some years ago, long, long time ago. But, you know, I really didn't grow much as a believer for a while because my aunt moved away soon after that visit. And it wasn't until I graduated from high school that I went to a few different, you know, seminars on Christian living and then really recommitted my life to Christ. And since then, you know, grew and just found, you know, the Lord in everything and really want to make his name known and his ways known.
You know, before we went on the air, I mentioned that you write for a lot of single parenting, Christian single, hope after divorce, all of those things. And I asked you the question directly, are you a single mom? And your answer was no, but you were journaling and journeying alongside as friends with two that were going through this and trying to tell their story and help others navigate by being a friend to those who needed a friend. That's something that with this new digital world that we live in, it seems to create a lot of challenges for deep, lasting, and intimate friendships. How have you been able to navigate in a disconnected world in creating long-lasting friendships?
Well, I think the irony here is that social media makes us feel connected. I mean, you have Facebook and Pinterest and Instagram and Twitter and probably 50 other social media sites that many people are plugged into. And people get on every day, multiple times a day, and maybe they'll see a picture from a cousin in Texas or their child in LA or whatever, and they think they're connected. They think, oh, I know what's going on in his life or her life. But you're not really connecting on a level that you can with a real friend. There's nothing that replaces, sitting across the table from somebody and sharing a meal or sharing a cup of coffee, because friendship isn't just looking at somebody's, online posts and having them tell you, oh, I'm sad today, I'm happy today, whatever. It's really cueing into what they're saying as well as what they're not saying, their verbals or nonverbals, how their posture is, looking. And when you're with someone in person, you cue into those things that you can't get on social media. Not that social media doesn't have its place, but I think we fool ourselves into thinking we have a lot of intimate friends. Just like you say, you got 5,000 Facebook friends. Well, nobody has 5,000 friends. It's not possible. But, we kid ourselves. And I think we are really shortchanging our lives when we don't seek in person, interactions and time with those that we can meet with, together and in person on a regular basis.
It's interesting, a survey just came out that 40% of all Americans have not had contact within the last 10 years with a direct relative, meaning a brother, sister, mother, father, the first line of family contact. 40% have had no contact whatsoever in 10 years with their immediate family. So when you break that down to the fact that we are a more dispersed society than we've ever been, we raise our children to be independent and to leave. We've labeled millennials as those that tend to stay, but that's not really as accurate as most would like to believe. There are those like myself that grew up in the 50s that we were raised to leave, and the minute we were able to go, that was the design. We were designed to go. And when we went off to school, that was it. There was nothing to come back to. There was I remember that after my sister went off to college, my parents sold their house and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. It was a beautiful condominium in downtown Pittsburgh overlooking the Three Rivers, but there wasn't room. They made it so that there was no place to come back to. Home was gone. Home was there. It served its purpose. A family was raised there. And now that the kids were gone, the kids were gone. And 2 of the 3 of us went as far away as we possibly could. I ultimately wound up in California, which is about 3,000 miles away from Pittsburgh. So it's interesting that the dynamics have shifted, and we find people that are digitally connected but are completely isolated. And along with that digital connection, are there real connections, or are we finding, I had never heard of catfishing. I had never heard, there's a whole lot of terms that I had never heard of. That I have a 29-year-old daughter that's said to me, Dad, well, this person got catfished. And I was like, I don't know what that means. Or the people that are on their Facebook page, they're not real. They're not who they say that they are. We as a ministry use my personal Facebook page and our ministry Facebook page 100% for ministry. I'm in ministry. I live in a glass house. I don't need to tell you what I had for lunch or where I am or what I'm doing. That's for our website, and that's for the people that follow our events and our television program, but that's not where I have an intimate conversation. It is just another platform as far as I'm concerned, as far as this ministry is concerned. So how do we look at this condition that we find ourselves in, where there is this friendship maze? My generation does have some friendships that have lasted for 50 years, but we just live in different places. We don't see each other, but we still consider each other close or even best friends, but we haven't seen them in 25 years.
Right, right.
How does all this work?
Well, you make up a good point. My kids are ages 27 to 32, and I have 4 adult children, and they've taught me a lot about what all those terms are. Catfishing, I had no idea either. And I'm on the social media sites every day, mostly because I have to, like you, for ministry, but my personal life is personal. It's just, I post pictures of my family, but the people I go to that I really, I can encourage and they encourage me, are people that I see and make time with. But like you, I have friends that I've had for 50 years, and yes, they've moved away. And we do use social media to keep in, we text each other almost every day. We call, we don't see each other a lot, but because we had such a great foundation to begin with, that we played together, we worked together, we sorrowed together, we rejoiced together. And those are the makings of friendships that last. When you have to you're close enough to somebody that when you fail each other, you forgive each other. Those are authentic friendships. And I like to ask people to really make a list of the people that they consider friends. And you really do some self-introspective thinking and praying, and ask yourself, hey, Galatians 5 is all about the fruits of the Spirit. Am I evidencing and giving those kinds of fruits of the Spirit to the people I call friends? Are they in turn, enriching my life in the same way? Or 1 Corinthians 13, the love chapter, about being patient and kind and not jealous, all those wonderful attributes that Christ is always building into us. Those are friendships, when you can say, yes, we're on the same page, we're going to the same goal. And you don't have to live in the same state, you don't even have to live in the same country, but boy, you do need some kind of real enriching conversation, accountability with each other, things that your friends know about you that no one else needs to know, but you keep each other accountable.
One of the areas that you write about is hope after divorce. You do a lot of parenting videos, parenting series, and one of the greatest divisive or dividers of all is when a marriage fails and the friends go one way or another. And there is a sense of betrayal, of who can I trust? There's this reaction of withdrawal and pulling away from, because your sphere of what was normal is no longer normal. And to navigate, as you call the book, Navigating the Friendship Maze, the search for authentic friendship, how do we define authentic friendship, and how do we get to that point where we're willing to be transparent enough? Because everybody seems to be on guard today. Everybody seems to be either narcissistic, kind of building wall builders, not the kind of wall building we should be around a community, but wall building around our hearts. And we tend to be keeping people out as opposed to opening ourselves up as we did when we were young, elementary school, middle school, high school, developing enduring friendships. How do we apply that to adult life and the restart? Some people are restarting in their 60s.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you make a good point, especially about folks who get a divorce and then find their friends are no longer available, or they're conveniently absent, or they're just not understanding the pain and the horrific sorrow of ending a marriage. And I think that one of the hardest things that I ever came to the realization was that people were going to church and finding even couples at church not necessarily shunning them, but not being comfortable with that single man or that single woman, because I think they were afraid, boy, if it can happen to you, it can happen to us, and almost like just distancing themselves from those who are hurting, which is so opposite of what Christ expects of us. And it's a real sad commentary on our churches, and hopefully we're doing better. But back in the early years, in the 1990s, early 2000s, when my friends went through their unwanted divorces, they did not find a lot of support in their church bodies. Now, I think it's gotten better as we realize, hey, you got to help the hurting. I don't care what parcel they come in. But again, finding an authentic friend, I ask myself, am I an authentic friend? You know, if I'm authentic with you, you're more likely to be authentic with me. And I always remember sitting around a group of women in the small groups that I lead. And if one woman has the courage to be honest about something she's going through, then one by one, all the other women chime in, you know, support her, love her, pray for her, hold her hand, you know, let her cry with them. But it takes one person. And if you're authentic with someone, you know, and they're not reciprocating, if there isn't give and take, and, you know, a balance of influencing. You know, you influence me today because I need it. You know, next week I influence you, just like a teeter-totter kind of goes up and down in a gentle motion. Boy, friendship should be that way. It should never be I give 100% and you're a take. So you kind of have to look and do like an exam of each of your friendships and ask yourself, are they healthy?
What happens when you are stripped away? The ones you thought were closest to you have been involved in a betrayal. And we find that in this betrayal, you wind up with an incredible shrinking. The numbers go from many to 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that restart, that ability to trust and see that the healthy aspects of relationships are beneficial. God talks about community. And how do we develop that really, that Acts chapter 2 model where we are breaking bread together, we are having fellowship together? Is the church the place that we do that? Is it through introductions? What are some of the methods for expanding that reach and building and learning how to trust again?
Well, I think it's twofold, and one important aspect that you touched on is you find out who your true friends are when you're in trouble and hurting. You know, and if your true friends are there for you, I mean, hanging tough with you, they're your friends. If you have friends that are so-called friends and they scatter or run from whatever you're going through, they weren't your friends anyway. And, you know, even though it hurts, I think sometimes that paring down, and maybe you had 10 friends and only 2 or 3 are left. Boy, 2 or 3 friends in this day and age who are ultimate, unique, you know, really building into your life and you're building into their lives, that's enough. That really is enough. And, you know, to build up more friends, to expand a reach in a community of a church or whatever, you know, if you have a good pastor, if you have a good women's leader or men's leader, you know, go to the people who are already connected to the majority of folks who attend your fellowship, you know, and have a meeting with them and tell them what you're desiring, what you're in need of, and help them to be a connector. Because, you know, they may not be your friends because you can't have that many friends, but boy, they can kind of set you up with some people that might be like-minded. And, you know, I like to remind others too that where you're at vocationally, wherever you're volunteering, whatever your hobbies are, whatever your passion is, look around at those groups of people because you're already there for the same reason. Either you're gifted in the same area, your passion is similar, your heart is really, you know, on fire for a certain issue. Those are the people that you already have something in common with. Look at that group, those groups with fresh eyes, and, you know, be the friend you want to have. People always say, I want more friends, I want more friends. Well, you be that friend. You invite somebody to coffee. You invite them into your home. You invite them to go running or walking with you or to an event. You can't wait for other people to just magically, you know, enrich your life if you aren't willing to do the same for them.
We're talking with Michele Howe, author of the newly released book, Navigating the Friendship Maze, The Search for Authentic Friendship. This is a challenge in today's digital environment. You may go to church and not know anybody. You may go to work and know your fellow workers, but you don't do anything with them afterwards just because they're your co-workers. And people are so concerned about saying the right thing or improprieties or making the wrong comment that we wound up becoming a society where we're pulling back and pulling away. But statistically, friendships are an ingredient to living a more healthy, robust life, especially in your later years. We're talking about those empty nester years. We're talking about after a traumatic incident, whether it's divorce, the loss of a loved one, or simply finding yourself in a new set of circumstances. And how do you navigate this friendship maze? We're going to take a look at some of the ways that Michele recommends that we do this, that we identify and understand what real friendship is all about, and how we can navigate this friendship maze. We'll be back with Michele Howe after this short announcement. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support. but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with Michele Howe, author of the newly released book, Navigating the Friendship Maze, The Search for Authentic Friendship. Michele, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Michele, there are seasons, and we read in Ecclesiastes, there's a time to plant and a time to sow. There's a time for everything. God has seasons. Does God have seasons in friendships as well?
Absolutely. I think we make the mistake of assuming that if we have a friendship, it may last our lifetime. It may not. And if it doesn't mean any person is at fault. You might have one of your closest, dearest friends of your whole life. Maybe the friendship will only be really thriving for 6 months when they live in the same town as you do. And it's not that you've argued or you've fallen away. You've just one person moves away. You have a different ministries, different lives, and it's busy. So you got to look at friendships and just be grateful. In whatever season or however many years you are friends with particular people, be grateful for it. God always will bring a new friend in. If you have a friend that leaves, it's okay, but you have to let them go gracefully, because if they're being called to another country, as a missionary, if they have a new opportunity and God has put it on their heart to go, then you may be the friend that stands behind them and blesses them as they leave and, supports them in prayer and other ways once they get established in a new town, a new city, a new country. But again, I think we get this idea, just like we say, oh, he's my best friend or she's my best friend. Well, I really hate that term, and I know I've used it, but that puts an awful lot of pressure on one person in your life. Just like your spouse cannot meet all your needs, nor should he or she, it is unreasonable to expect one person to meet all your social needs. You might have a fun friend that all you do is fun things with. You might have a friend that's really the one who mentors you. And that's the extent of your friendship, or whom you mentor. You got to broaden your ideas of what friendships should look like and how they are useful in your life and in the lives of others.
Not all friendships are healthy. And we find ourselves at times where we come to the realization that the friend that we have is really, what do they say? A friend in need is a friend indeed. Mm-hmm. That when we kind of take the time to contemplate and read books like yours that are not only strong understanding of defining friendships and prayers for friendships, and that's an essential ingredient. Are we praying over our friends? Are we praying over the selection of our friends? But how, as believers, do we extract ourselves biblically, gracefully, upliftingly for those people that have become, unfortunately, negative impact or time drainers or distractors or jealous, envious, possessive? We may be their only friend. We may have a larger sphere, and they put what you said on us. Oh, that's my best friend, and they have an expectation, and we find ourselves being. We look at the caller ID, and we hit ignore, and
Mm-hmm.
we know it's just going to be more drama. It's just going to be more ask. It's going to be more need, and you're just kind of at that point where you're worn out with it. How do you biblically, gracefully get yourself out of those kind of situations?
Well, one of the first things I suggest that others do is take a line from Paul Tripp. And I remember him speaking about this some years ago. And he said, people will reveal to you who they are if you watch them long enough. And what he's saying is, be wise before you even enter into new relationships with people. Because if you see, let's say, a man or a woman mistreating the people around him, mistreating their employees, being disloyal, backbiting, hateful, envious, any number of sinful, attitudes and actions, you will be sure that if you enter into a relationship with them, eventually that bad behavior is going to be, heaped upon you. And I think we all like to think, oh, no, 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 I'll be the exception. If I'm careful to avoid, the hot button topics, if I'm careful to be sensitive to that person, it's not true. Eventually that person's inner character is going to be exposed, and they're going to treat you or mistreat you the way they do others. So again, be wise before you enter in. Let's say you're in a relationship, as you just pointed out, that's not healthy. And let's say this person is needy and there are no boundaries, and day and night you are being bombarded with texts and calls or unwanted visits. And your marriage, your children, your grandchildren, your ministry, your work, everything is suffering. Your health is suffering because that person is trying to, insert themselves into every part of your life. Well, that person is not healthy. So you have to prayerfully go before the Lord, maybe go to a counselor, your pastor, a good, wise mentor friend, and say, hey, I'm in a sticky situation. Help me navigate through this if you can't do it on your own. But there is a way to do it graciously. We speak the truth in love, but we have to remember we speak gently, we speak kindly, but we have to have our own boundaries, and we have to look at people and the relationships that we have in our lives. And if we see someone who is unhealthy and who is leaning on us so much that they aren't growing, strong in the Lord, they're not growing independent of our interaction or intervention, that we're not helping them, and I think sometimes when we say that necessary no to someone, then God can do the work he wants to do in their lives. And, women especially, we'd be so relational and so merciful that we think that we are going to rescue people when the Lord is, screaming in the background, no, I don't want you to rescue her. She has to feel the full weight of her poor choices, and there's got to be repercussions, just like we did with our children growing up. Sometimes that occasional friend will come in, and if we really, really love them, we want them to grow up. We don't want them to stay babies, emotional babies, their entire lives.
Well, you're exactly right. Relationships are difficult at all levels and require a tremendous amount of commitment. We have to be intentional in our friendships the same way we're intentional in our marriages, intentional in our jobs. The challenge as people get older is that men want to have a plus one. A woman wants to have a plus one. They're single, they get invited to events, and they want to take a plus one. How do you develop that relationship where you have somebody you don't want a romantic relationship. You want to have a friend to go to a movie with, a friend to go have a meal with, but you don't want it to get to the point of it crossing the boundary of friendship. And I see more and more of there being, the dating sites are dating sites, but there aren't really friendship sites. There aren't really, you've got to navigate that one non-digitally in order to, and so that's one of the areas where the digital world doesn't really meet a particular need of friendship.com or, where do you meet people outside of the studio or outside of the pulpit or outside of where you're speaking. For those of us that are always in the pulpit, we don't have a congregation that we regularly attend where we have fellowship with, because our ministry puts us in the speaking position, not in the relational position. So for myself, for Jason, who's also a performer and is with me at many of the venues, but also is in a performance world, what advice do you have for us in being able to build friendships that have that boundary or have that understanding of, look, I just want somebody to go, I don't like to sit in a restaurant by myself. I don't like to go to a movie by myself. I don't want to be the dirty old man sitting by himself at the movie. I'm not that person. So, you know, would I appear to be that person? The answer would be, well, yeah, you would be. You would appear based on the way people look at situations. So, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, that's a challenge. And I think you have to set boundaries right from the beginning if you do meet that person. But I would say your best opportunity to meet that plus one who just wants to have a platonic friendship is talk to the friends you already have, you know, and just kind of put the word out. But again, it forces you to be vulnerable. It forces you to take a chance, you know, and to say, hey, you know, I'm in a particular situation where, right, I'm behind the pulpit. I'm a media person. I don't get a chance to meet peers who aren't, just, yeah, I'm more of the authority and they're more of like, you know, the viewer, the listener, whatever. So, you know, talk to your friends, talk to your family. You know, if you got a great family, you know, extended people, get the word out that way. Again, you know, your colleagues, you know, somebody always knows somebody. And I think that is true. And again, think about where you do it for leisure. Do you like to go to football games? There's got to be somebody that's out there who would love to go to a football game or a basketball game or a soccer game or theater or a movie or out to dinner. And I think you take classes in those area of interest, or you go to those events with a group of friends and really pray about it. I think we so neglect praying for God to bring in particular people for particular needs in our lives. You know, we think, oh, you know, we'll get on a site, we'll do this. Well, you know what? How much time have we spent just using, you know, our straight up avenue with the Lord and saying, you know, I'm in need here, and you know my heart, you know what I'm looking for. Can you match me up with somebody who has the same needs? That we really don't want romance, we just want friendship, you know. And I would start there.
Well, I think it's very sound wisdom. You talk in your book about mentor friends, and there is this whole new world that's beginning to evolve where the challenge we give, we have a number of authors who come on with us on a regular basis that are very much promoting and mentoring this generation. You've given your age, you've been married for a number of years, you have grown children, you're an active mom, an active grandmother, and active in the community, but you have gifts to share with a young couple or with a young group that are coming up that you can speak into their lives. You talk in your book about mentoring, and you say that every woman needs a mentor friend. What does that look like, and how do you find one, and how do you become one?
Yeah, that's a great point. There's two aspects to it. You know, when I say you need a mentor friend, you need somebody that's just a little farther along than you are in life. That's what you're looking for. You're looking at a man or a man if you're a man, a woman if you're a woman, and you're somebody you admire, somebody that you respect, somebody that you look at their life choice and you go, yes, they've made some great choices, and I like how they view life, and they're biblical, and they're fighting the good fight even as they age, which gets harder and harder the older we get, because we lose a lot of independence as you get older. So you find that person, and just naturally, and you just go to them and say, hey, I have a couple dilemmas here, can I talk to you about them? And most people will say sure. And you just ask them, what did you do right? What did you do wrong? What would you tell me to do? You know, mentor me, walk me through the repercussions of something I'm going through. That's your mentor friend. And then you need peers. You need people who are right in the trenches of life, right where you're at, that you don't even need to say much. You look at each other, you laugh, you cry, you get each other, because you're right there at the same point. But then, you know, God tells us that we need to be pouring into others' lives. And so I look at younger women. Maybe they're newly divorced. Maybe they've never been married. Maybe they want kids but can't have them. Maybe they're unemployed. Maybe they're students, whatever. And I find one that I click with, and then I can pour into her life. You know, that young mom with 3 kids who's sleep deprived and just so frustrated that she feels like her life isn't going anywhere. I can speak into her life and say, hey, what you're doing the most important job in the world, and this is how you're going to get through it. I got through it. Do this, this, and this, and really be a hands-on help.
It makes a great deal of sense. In your own life, what kind of friends have you personally found to become the most satisfying? And if we were to create kind of the model and say, okay, we're going to look at Michele Howe, who's written a book about Navigating the Friendship Maze. How do you look at your friends? How have they evolved over time? What does your current base of friendships look like, and how is that different than it was 20 years ago?
Mhm. Well, I would say now I look for authenticity. I look for transparency. I look for people who just are not afraid to be honest about their failings, their faults, their struggles, because I have them too. We all have them. You look for somebody who you can just tell the truth to, and I love that my friends are all that way and who also keep me accountable. If they see me having a stinky attitude, they'll say, hey, what's going on here? And they'll probe deep enough until I tell them what's bugging me or what I'm struggling with. And then they'll say, you know what, I get why you're feeling that way, but what does the word say about what you need to do with that? And then they walk me back into biblical truth and, right thinking. Those are the kind of people I like to surround myself with.
So when we go back to a foundational scripture in the book of Amos that says, can two walk together lest they be in agreement? Do we find that we attract more long-term friends who share the same faith model that we share the same biblical values that we share? And how does that either open us or block us to expanding our horizons to those of different faith or different lifestyle? And do we have within friendship, is that a gateway to evangelism? Is that a gateway to introducing somebody to the gospel?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I think, first of all, you have to remember the people that you surround yourself with, you become like them. You become the people closest around you. So you have to choose wisely. Now, that's not to say you can't have friends who have other faiths. No, absolutely not. The Lord is always wanting us to reach out, and we're in the world to love the world, people who are different than us. I'm all about that. But the closest friends are going to be friends who share your faith. You're on the same trajectory in life. You want to honor the Lord Jesus Christ in attitude, in action. Your life is for him, right? So you put the people in your life closest to you that have that same goal, that keep you accountable. However, you have colleagues, you have relatives, you have neighbors that you, spend time with and enjoy it. But I think always in your mind's eye, you want to share what's most important when you've earned that right. When they know that you love them for them and you accept them, even if you don't agree with them, you want to share what means the most to you, which is a saving faith in Christ. So I think that has to be always in your mind that, that's my goal for them because I love you. I don't want you to die in sin and away from Christ. So you keep your closest friends, fellow believers. That doesn't mean you shun others. No, you bring them in, but you have to realize friendship is a tricky business. I mean, you'll think, well, they won't influence me. They will influence you. So you have to be mindful and sensitive to that fact.
It's interesting you say that. Batman 1, the original Batman, there was a line in there that says, if you dance with the devil doesn't change, you do. And so we do have to be careful. We have to be wise. And if we are looking to have the goal of sharing the gospel and we're building a relationship for that purpose, then that defines the bounds of the friendship and allows us to stay laser focused on the mission and on the call. You've had some great friendships and you've had some not so great friendships. What did you learn from the friendships that failed? The friendships that wound up being the most disappointing? The friendships that brought about betrayal or brought about heartache in your life? What was it that you were able to glean from those that helped you become a better friend, and two, see the goodness of God even in the trial?
Yeah, and you're right. I've had some friends that their friendships went wrong, and I wouldn't say on two of the occasions that it was anybody's fault. We just grew apart. So we grew apart amicably, but there was one friendship that ended sadly because I felt at some point I had to challenge her biblically and I did it gently, and I did it kindly, and I was in such prayer before I met with this person, but it it just fell on deaf ears. So we weren't able to proceed past that point, which is still grievous to me today. And who knows what tomorrow will bring, because God's always changing our hearts and changing us. But I think what I learned was, again, I go back to Paul Tripp, I needed to be wiser at the outset. So now when new potential friends come into my life, I mean, I really am looking at their character, and I'm thinking, golly, my life is so busy and so full right now. Is this something the Lord even wants? Number one. Number two, do I have time for another friend? Because relationships that thrive take time and energy, as you said earlier. We don't have time for a lot of friends at an intimate level. We just don't. So I think I looked at it that way, and I've kind of changed and realized that God was refining me in the process, even when those friendships kind of just disappeared. And even though we're all disappointed at times, and we disappoint each other, whether we do it on purpose or we do it just by neglect because we're just human, I think he's taught me what real friendship is, what real love is.
Michele, there are a lot of introverts out there that live in an extroverted world. Mm-hmm. That when they get dressed in the morning, they get dressed in an extrovert's clothing to mask the introvert that is inside. There's a lot of people that are very happy alone that are not lonely. There are a lot of people that are very happy to live what might seem to be an isolated life, but yet there are times or seasons in their life where they want to be engaged, but they don't know how to engage. To that person that's out there, and we know a lot of them who live by themselves and would like friends periodically, but don't want them continually. How do you navigate that?
Well, I can speak as an introvert. I am an introvert, so I get it. Now, talking to you today is delightful, but then I can probably go for 4 hours not talking to anybody. And that's just how introverts are. They talk, they engage, and then they need their quiet, and it's that dipping in and dipping out and knowing what you need in life. But I think for introverts, you have to remember, even if you're an introvert or a super introvert and you're really shy, you have to remember God created us to be relational beings. No man is an island. No woman should be alone. You may decide to stay single your entire life, and that's fine. But you need family. You need friends. You need colleagues. You need neighbors. You need people to do life with, because life doesn't have a lot of meaning if you're alone all the time. I mean, you need to share your joys and your happiness and the wonderful times, and you need somebody to walk alongside you when it gets tough. And you need to hear other people sharing the same things, the sorrows as well as the triumph. So don't mistakenly think, oh, I'm an introvert, that you don't need people. You need people too. You just might need them in smaller doses.
Well, that's oddly enough, I am an introvert that lives in an extrovert world, and have navigated it through media, through writing books and through speaking, but I'm perfectly comfortable. I would never consider myself to be a lonely person, but I'm surrounded by so many people all the time that it becomes a place of sanctuary almost. And that becomes difficult because you tend to receive the invitation and have an inclination to say no thank you, because it involves a lot of people. So it is a maze that has to be navigated. And you've given us an incredible tool, and I thank you for that. I don't know that there's many books written about this from a biblical worldview that gives us the tools that you give us in navigating the friendship maze, the search for authentic friendship. We are called to be in the world, but not of the world. Friendship with the world is hatred towards God, but yet we still have to have friends, just not the worldly kind of friends that others have. And what Michele is advocating, and I completely support it, is assess before you decide on who your friends are going to be. Watch to see if they are of a caliber that are worthy of your time, your investment, your prayers, and your engagement at a level that qualifies them to be called friend, which is not just the number of followers you have on Facebook and Twitter, but who can you count among? Who on your emergency call list are the people that you put there on your health profile on your phone, that when you hit that emergency button, who are those 3, 4, 5 people that you want to know that something has happened to you? Those are your real friends. Those are the people, and it's not just family, they're friends on there, and that is something we need to learn how to do and to do well. Michele Howe, thank you so much for sharing this incredible work with us on Revealing the Truth. I want to
Thank you
encourage
for having me.
You're welcome. I want to encourage our audience to visit our website, ignitingnation.com. Click on Books and Media. Scroll down to today's date, this beautiful cover, Navigating the Friendship Maze, and order a copy for yourself. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.